It's always fun to be introduced by someone you love, you know? You're like, oh, I love this. Okay, you guys, it's so fun to be here. Carol and Curtis are dear friends as well, and, to see George and Connie, it's just fun. I love Thousand Oaks. I don't come often, but so this is such a privilege. Well, I'm really glad you're here. I think we're going to have a good time. I was just at the other seminar, okay, is it Pastor John Irwin? He did the one on suicide. And you guys, it's recorded. So I'm going to recommend that you actually listen to it, because I believe that was a wonderful seminar to really look at suicide for our youth. He did a really extensive job on it, and he does it so fun. And I really want to recommend that for you. So I think I'm going to have a little bit of a different approach to this, so I'll talk to you about that some more. But let me pray for us. It's the afternoon hour. No one ever wants to speak after lunch. Did you know that? It is like a speaker's death meal. So, but you know what? I'm cool with it because I believe in you guys, all right? And so I'm going to trust that the Spirit of God is going to help us, and we're going to learn some things. So let me pray that the Lord would just help our time together. Jesus, thank you for these dear ones here who invested their time to learn and to learn how to minister to themselves as well as to their communities about mental health. Lord, I pray that our short time together would be helpful. And Jesus, will you keep us awake? Will you keep us learning? Holy Spirit, we invite you to be here. Thank you for guiding us to this moment right now. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, you can see my little thing. This is a little bit about me, my little family. I live with my elderly parents, and I also live with my nephew on the left. He has OCD that he's dealing with, and I'm very proud of him for sometimes with people with different mental health disorders, it's hard to keep a job, and I'm so proud of him for keeping a job. And so he's taught me a lot about patience and even just being in the community and learning about those who deal with mental health issues and mental illness. And so it's taught me a lot about compassion, and it's taught me a lot about who I am, and that I'm also very impatient at times. And so God has used him to help me to grow in my character. And you can see these are students. I love students. I have nephews and nieces and my parents. And then these are some of the my staff that I love, our EPIC staff, our Asian American ministry, and I just love what I do, and it's a privilege. And my other loves, okay, is this, which way? Did I do it right? Is it this way? Oh, I did it too fast. Oh, wait. This thing is really fast. I think I'm going, oh, I see. I think I went the wrong way. Okay, got it. There we go. And my other loves, the beach, and hang out with my friends, and I love basketball. And this season, do not ask me if I'm going to root for the Lakers or the Clippers or the Golden State Warriors, but I love them all because it's going to be a fun season. So anyways, thanks for humoring me to share that with you. And you can tell I'm going to be a little anxious this season because I really don't know who to root for. But I love Steph Curry, so that's what I'm going to say. But and Lakers, right? Anyways, so I'd love to just ask you guys a little bit. Why did you come to this seminar? Just whoever, just shout it out. Just shout it out. I love having people kind of think about this with me. So why did you come to this seminar? Anyone?
For someone with mental illness.
Yeah, a caretaker, with a young person.
Yes, 16.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
This Great Depression.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I don't know who's Gen Z.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you for being honest. You're like, what the heck is that? I don't know. Okay. That's fine. That's honest. Okay. We'll do one more. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My grandkids are Gen Z.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay. All right. Okay, I was reading your thing. Did you hear what I said? I said, go to his seminar and recording. I love your thing. I'm actually going to approach this from a different angle. I'm not going to necessarily talk about suicide as much, but I will. But I think I want to approach it from a holistic picture of who a Gen Z person is, a young person is, and then have us kind of think about what are the things that we need to think about when we think about their needs holistically, as parents or friends or caregivers, but looking in the context of our world that they live in, okay? So I hope that this will be helpful, and we'll go through that. Okay, so who are the Gen Z? What is that? Okay, that's just a term to describe a generation. I think, am I doing this right? Yes. Okay, so Gen Z, who are they? They're born between 1997 to 2012. So they could be right now about 7 years old to about 22. They're young people, okay? And the reason why they're called Gen Z is because there was Gen Y, Generation Y, which is called millennials, and they were right there, right? So that's where this generation follows millennials, right? And then what are they like? So I kind of drew some pictures for you. So the first one right there is 8 seconds. 8 seconds. Gen Z only have an attention span of 8 seconds. Some of them only 4. So if I'm going to talk to them, I would have lost them by now. Okay? And then you see the clock. The clock says that the young people that live in America now, and even the world, they take in 6 to 9 hours of social media sometimes. And so that's their world. Okay, let's see what else I can tell you. The phone, okay, there's 90 million Gen Z, 90 million young people in America, 90 million. The phone, the smartphone, so 97% of this generation has a smartphone. 97%. You think about little kids too, okay? Not just the older ones. All right, and then you've got the drink. I couldn't find anything, but they're a little bit different than the millennials because they're more conservative, actually, because they've seen how maybe the millennials did their thing. And so they tend to be more conservative about money. And so they tend to be conservative also about, they don't tend to do as much drugs as the other generation before them, or they don't drink as much alcohol. So that's something interesting that we need to know about them. The other thing is, you see this, the little device, it looks like 2, right? Well, millennials probably could do 2 screens, but guess what a Gen Z does? 5 things happening at once. He or she is using 5 devices all at once. Now, I'm old, okay? I work with college students, but I'm old, and I just think that's crazy. But think about what does that mean for that person's psyche, okay? 5 things all at once, open at the same time. And then you've got the knowns, right? You know what that is? That this generation, they would say it's post-Christian, because they would say they're not affiliated with religious organizations or churches or whatever. This generation is a little bit different than the other ones. And so they're called none. They're not affiliated with them. And then you've got these, I like this one. You see the little one, the little, Facebook and all this stuff. What's interesting about these people, these young people, is that they see the different kind of like persons there. They actually can create their own personas in social media. In fact, a lot of them have fake accounts because they want to create an image about who they are. So they've got quite a few there, right? And some of them can have as many as 5. So maybe their name is Margaret Yu, but they have another account saying something else because they want to create how they want people to see them for who they want to be. So in a sense, they're creating their own personas and identity. So this is a crazy thing, thinking about that for yourself. Think about what you did when you were young, okay? So that's what they do. They are FOMO. Do you know what FOMO is? Fear of missing out. Why do you think they experience fear of missing out so much? What? Oh, did someone say something? Yeah, like us too, right? It's like, oh man, that looks like a great conference. I'm not there, right? So internet has made it, social media has made it seem, but they deal with FOMO all the time. They have a fear of missing out. And in this little picture of development, I would say that they are developmentally delayed. So for example, I work with college students. So the college student that is 18 years old right now, that's entering freshman year right now, he or she is the first year at UCSB or whatever. The college freshman who's 18 years old, developmentally, in reality, is about 15. And the 15-year-old in your high school right now is about 12 because they're developmentally delayed. That's what psychologists would say. And so I want you to think about that. That's our youth, okay? Did I cover all of them? And in the midst of it, this is what I was telling you, I like them because they're, in the midst of everything, they kind of learn from their past, but, people that gone before them, but they want to make a difference in this world. They want to volunteer. They care about the things of the world in terms of people. They want to volunteer more to make a difference. So I like this picture of them, right? It's very kind of holistic. And let's see some more things about them. Oh yeah, one more. What's that on the right? It's pho, right? They love food. They are foodies galore. They love food. They would spend money on food, right? I understand that. So, all right, let's see. What else can I tell you about them? Okay, so they're the most diverse generation of all time. In America, there's 50% of them are non-white, more than 50. And so this is the most diverse generation we've had in America. And then it's also on the right, if you look at the gender picture, it's not just the blendedness of cultures ethnically, but it's also gender. So if you were to look and ask this generation, you may find that 1/3 of them are gay. A few of them, let me look at the statistics here. They are 35% bisexual, and their sexuality and gender is fluid. Like you and I can look at you're a male or a female, but for them, it's like, well, you're whoever you want to be. You could be a transgender, you could whatever. So it's a little bit different, they're more blended. And in terms of sexuality, you can see that 1 out of 5 teen girls, 20%, have been involved in sexting, using the phone for, nude pictures or whatever. That happens a lot. This is this generation as well, so hate to say that. And then the dating game, now again, they're more conservative, but also this age is different. They actually tend to date less. So, and maybe it's because the way they see friendship on here, friendship, like you and I think of, oh, Connie and I are friends, and we see each other face to face, and we have coffee. That's great. For them, friendship is actually maybe 1/3 face-to-face. No, okay, is it 1/3? Yeah, maybe it's 1/3 face-to-face, but really, sometimes it's not. It's just 2/3 virtual. So for them, in real life, friend has the same value as a virtual friend. Think about that. To me, I'm old, I just don't get it, but I think I get it because that's what they've known their whole lives. This Generation Z is also known as digital natives. They were born into a place where they've always had the internet, right? They've always had a few devices going. And so that's how they see friendship. It's not just in real life, but virtual friends. And then the other thing is 8 out of 10 of them are hooked on social networks. 8 out of 10 are very hooked on that. So those are some of the things about them. And then I'm going to pause later to kind of have us think about this a little bit. I think that's it. Here's some of their hopes and dreams. I wanted to share that with you. I think, as I said before, this generation, they want to have heroes that are making a difference. So Malala, or Katniss, remember Hunger Games? Those are kind of their heroes, people who can make a difference. They're planners, unlike the millennials who didn't have focus. They plan. They want to own their own businesses. They want to invent something for the world, to change the world, to help the world, which is kind of cool. I like that. I like the picture of them. And 2 out of 3 of them want to finish their education. 66% want a career. 65, this is a good one. This is very much their age. 65% of them want to be millionaires by the time they're 30. Why do they do that? Because they've seen people become famous very quickly, right? And that is interesting. 20% want to be married, but it's not as high as it used to be in the past generations, so that's something different. 32% want to be a Twitter celebrity with 1 million followers. Do you guys want that? Is that what you guys want? Okay. Let me give you a few more things on that. Let's see. Some of them want to be famous YouTubers. Does that surprise you? Some of them want to develop software that would change the world. So I like that. I like hearing that because these are some of the college students that I work with and future college students that I work with in the college ministry. So I love talking about that. So I'm going to pause here. And I just want to ask you a question. As you kind of look at that profile, that's the Gen Z. Again, they're called digital native or I generation, like iPhone, I generation. Were you surprised by anything? And what questions or comments do you have as you think about who they are? Again, this is just a short little compilation of who they are. And when I want you to think about what we've been talking about them, what do you think are the key influences or events for this generation, Gen Z? Okay, so why don't you think about it for a second? Okay. Any surprises by you guys? Yes? Could you?
I'm not sure if it's a surprise, but you mentioned developmental delays.
Yeah.
I was curious what you feel has caused that.
Great question. Yeah, that's a great question. Does anyone have a thought on that? Just looking at what we looked at? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll repeat the question. She asked a really good question. Like, I mentioned that this generation, psychologists would say they're developmentally delayed. And so instead of what I would see a typical 18-year-old freshman in a college, it's an 18-year-old, but in terms of maturity, they're more like 15. And you go backwards. So she was asking, why do you think that's true? Does anyone have a thought on that? Yeah. Oh. Yeah. That's okay. Say that again?
Helicopter parenting.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit, maybe?
Like parents that enable their kids with everything. They don't ever have to do anything for themselves. They don't have to make their own decisions. The parents are there doing it for them.
Yeah, that's a really good. Did you guys hear that? Helicopter parenting, where they kind of coddle them. And so when they get to college, they don't know how to do anything. I see them in college. And, were you going to say something?
Well, almost the opposite. The opposite side of the coin is parents who are not there.
Yeah.
So they look independent, but emotionally they're not.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that even they look physically, maybe they're independent, but emotionally they could be slower. So that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, I was going along those lines that maybe it's because there's a lot of emphasis on intellectual development,
Yeah.
not on emotional development.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, in fact, on college campuses, okay, I hate to say this because I love college students, so I hate dogging on them, but there are some campuses, my mic is going crazy here. There are some campuses where they have safe space for college students because they don't want to trigger any emotional discomfort for them if there's disagreements about opinions about certain things. Have you ever heard that before? It's like even Berkeley or some other places. And so that is what you're talking about, is that they're so, I was gonna say mentally fragile and maybe emotional too, right? It's all mixed up sometimes in there, right? And so this generation, some of them are they're 18 years old, but they're younger and they're emotionally fragile. So that's our generation that's happening right now. Okay, so any questions or, yes?
I just had one more comment. I've got 6 grandchildren, all different ages, and I'm pretty close with them, and I kind of watch all this stuff. That's one of the reasons I'm taking this class. Something that's really been lost.
Yeah.
Get irate when I say this, but I don't see discipline much
Yeah.
in the household anymore. I see conforming to the child, their every need.
Yeah.
Everything. They don't want to upset the child. They don't want to, and they think there's going to be unity and peace and balance if they don't.
Yeah.
And I see how taking away, I've also been a preschool teacher and
Yeah.
so forth. And I see how taking away discipline is just, it hurts them.
Yeah, and again, I think this kind of conversation is very holistic. There's a lot. Sometimes if you look at it, generations respond or react to what other people did before them and how they were parented, right? So it is interesting what you said. So thank you for sharing that. I think that could be really true. Yes.
A different one. A vast majority of my Christian parent friends
Mm-hmm.
who have Gen Z kids, despite them growing up in the church, they've rejected it for themselves.
Yeah, that's very true. That has happened. Yeah. In fact, I didn't get to put this on there. I didn't put everything. There's so many things out there. But I read some things in which they said that for Christians, this is a generation where there are a lot more homeschool kids. So if you think about homeschool kids, it's great, but it's also very sheltered, right? A little bit more. Not that it's bad, because my nephews and nieces are, homeschooled. But I think that's another thing that plays into it. Okay, so I'd love to ask you guys, when you think about who they are and looking at the world and history, what are some of the key influences you think that are impacting this Generation Z? Just shout it out. What do you think? The events that would impact these people or influences? Anyone?
Media.
What?
Media.
Media? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. We'll go back to that. Thank you. Others? What? He said media. Social media, right? That's what you mean, right? Yes. Oh. Peer pressure? Yeah. That goes with it, yeah. John, were you going to say something?
Sexuality, gender fluidity.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you notice what I put in there, they were like, it's fluid. Well, I can call myself a man if I wanted to, right? It's very fluid. That is part of the generation, but yeah, those are good ones. Anything else? Yes.
What about violence, school shootings, and world
Yeah.
politics?
Yeah. It's really good. Yeah. There's so much. Yes. What was it? Secularism. Can you explain that a little bit, maybe? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not cool to be Christian in a lot of places. Yeah, that has happened for this generation. So I'm going to tell you the 3 that I think covers all this. The first is in 1996, 1997, it's what you said, I think, this brother over here in the yellow. Something amazing happened in history. Around 1996, 97, it changed all of our lives. And you know what that was? That you can have a PC. You can have a PC, your own personal computer. That alone changed how we develop devices, right? So our kids, our young people are exposed to news 24/7 because they have a phone, Remember, 97% of them have their own phone. And so think about that, what that means. And then the second thing is 9/11. For this generation, some of them have sort of a memory, but they have parents who responded to that, and a government that responded to terrorism. 9/11 was a marker that happened in that generation, and that does change the psyche of the parents and the children. So think about it. Remember 9/11? I was scared spitless for my family. They were traveling around the world. In the first week after 9/11, I had a conference to go to, and it was in San Francisco, and I'd never been afraid of going to we had a little social where we went to the Giants baseball field. We all went through, and we had to go through the, security check. Never done that before, right? And even flying was so scary. But that changed how we fly even today, right? That changed how we see terrorism. So that's another thing that's in their psyche. And then I think the third thing that I would say is 2008. What happened in 2008? Economic recession. That's why you see this generation, they're a little bit conservative in the money than the millennials. Millennials would spend a lot of money, okay? You know that, right? I have friends who are there. But this generation is a little bit more conservative. I think that's why they don't do alcohol or drugs as much. But they will like food. They will do the food, okay? So don't take away the food, but they will spend money on the food. But it does explain a little bit about some of their psyche about money, okay? So that's something for you to look at and think about. So I want to ask you another question. So you guys are doing so great. I love it. So when you think about that picture that we looked at, and you can look at it in your outlines, why do you think Gen Z, and it is in the studies and research, they are the most vulnerable to mental health issues? So think about that. You can look at the picture of the Gen Z in your notes. Think about that. Why do you think they're the most, of all the generations, the most vulnerable to mental health issues?
Pampered and spoiled.
All right, okay, all right,
We can only blame ourselves as parents.
okay, all right.
They lack the absolutes. I think everything's fluid, it's changeable.
Yeah, information, right? Think about information, internet.
Internet drugs, just drugs are more available, internet,
It's-
it's all their fault,
Yeah.
General insecurity.
our fault, our fault.
No guilt here, we're not shaming each other. We're just having an honest conversation. I'm a parent, you're a parent. We're all growing and learning. What were you gonna say? Yeah, were you gonna say something else?
General insecurity. So
Yeah. Lack of stability. It's fast, right? Remember, 8 seconds.
Broken families, everything there's no stability.
Think about Twitter. How fast is that? I can't even snap my fingers, and it's that fast. I'm old. I have friends like DJ Chuang who helps me with this stuff. I want to be in touch with the young people, and I want to serve and lead them. So what were you going to say?
I feel like there's a lack of identity.
Yep. Because you know why? Why is there a lack of identity? Tell me.
That's a good question. Well, I can only speculate. Maybe there's a lack of identity because of this, sort of this fear of, like what we've been saying, that we're conforming to what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't quite know what the boundaries are. They don't quite know.
Yeah, it's fluid. Everything is fluid, right?
So they don't really know the
Yeah.
boundaries, they don't know
It's
that
true.
there's truth,
Yeah.
that there's good, there's
Right.
bad. Because it's a generation of everyone gets a trophy.
I didn't get a trophy. Darn it.
No
Darn it.
one failed.
Yeah.
It's like their
Yeah.
generation fear
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah.
It's like they don't want
Yeah.
to deal with.
Yeah. So let me, I love that. I would say this. Psychologists would say that a child's self-image and self-worth is formed by the age what? What age? Does anyone know? 6 years old. I want you to think about that. And what do we have, what's happening in our society now? What do kids do even before 6 now? What? They what? They do play soccer, thank you. But what else do they have with them? They have a tablet, they have a phone, they have something, right? They have better stuff than I do. That's what I'm gonna say. And then remember the picture that I had with the different, 5 or 6, social network persons? They're creating their own personas. They're saying, today I'm gonna be Gertrude, and I'm gonna put this on my account. I'm gonna have another account and have another self, because I wanna try it out and see. What does that tell you about your soul? It's not anchored. It's really crazy when I think about that point. Like when I grew up, I'm old, identity is supposed to be formed, right? Identity is something you choose, but identity is something that is given to you by your family, by your faith, by different things, right? And so, and there's a sense of discovering who you are in community, okay? But there wasn't a sense of, I can just do this and have no accountability. Okay, my favorite player, Kevin Durant. Not my favorite player, what am I saying? Well, not anymore. But do you know, the man has millions of dollars. He has burner accounts. You know what those are? Fake accounts. Why? Because he's so insecure. He wants to do this. But there's something that's the bottom of this is identity formation. And so when you think about this generation, as we think about their mental health, their emotional health, their spiritual health, you've got to think about their identity formation. What are we doing even before they're 6 years old? And even afterwards? Their souls are young. Who are they being shaped by? What are they being shaped by, right? And so I love that. Okay, anyone else? I like that a lot. Yes, yes? Oh.
Generation doesn't have the ability to discern what is true and not in the news or in the media because everything's marketed and repackaged.
Yeah.
It's reframed to put whatever it is, whatever you choose for that day is put forward, and there's a lot of fake news. Like they just get on Wikipedia or The Onion and they think that's real. Nothing is real.
Okay, I'm gonna confess, even myself, sometimes I go, wait, was that fake news, right? And I'm old. And so I do think that there is a sense of that too. It's real, yeah. So I'm gonna say about that, okay. All right, self-image, identity. I think when we look at the mental health and everything, yes?
Question, to what degree do you think that the political environment that we live in today affects them? Because it's nuts up there.
Yes. It is. In fact, we'll talk about it. Will you make sure I talk about it? I think I would say this, that because they see the news and hear the news whenever they want to, for the most part, and parents are careful. Some parents are good parents. They kind of keep their kids away from, disasters. Like when I was little, when disasters happen, I didn't necessarily see it right away in the moment, right? But now it's like, oh, it's in the news. It's in my phone, right? Yeah, it's in the schools and shooting, right, in the schools. So there is a lot of that. So, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, let's do this. So let me give you a little picture of their mental health. So collegiates, the first fact, in 2016, they took some polls of some freshmen coming in, and they asked them about their well-being, psychological well-being. 84% of them were anxious, and that makes sense, you're freshmen, that makes sense a little bit. 51 were depressed, 41 overwhelmed. And so you think about that, that's an 18 or 17-year-old going into college or, So that's a little bit of their psyche. At age 14, 25% of girls are depressed. I am in the high school ministry now, sort of. I help with Sunday school, junior high kids, and I see this sometimes. I see a lot of things, like they tell me things like, please pray for my friend who is a transgender person and who's being bullied. So all this stuff that we're talking about, it's happening to these girls. And so they're seeing a lot of things. So they're depressed. 31% of 8th and 10th graders are lonely. They worry, who said this? They worry about everything. This generation worries a lot. Okay, they worry about getting a job because the recession, they're worried about debt, money, terrorism. They worry about inequalities, which you love that they care about equality, right? But they're worrying about it. They worry about sexual assault because so much of the Me Too stuff is there, right? They worry about mass shootings in the schools, right? There's no place safe for them the last 10 years or so. It's been crazy. And so they're so worried. They don't trust the government, like you said. They don't trust corporations to do the right thing. They're concerned about global warming. They're concerned about the planet. They're worried about a lot of things that children, think about your kids. They shouldn't, maybe you get older, but children should actually not worry so much, wouldn't you say? It doesn't seem healthy. So this is a little bit of their psyche. The good thing about this generation is that they will seek help. I would say about 30% of them will seek help. They're more self-aware about getting help. So that is a silver lining, like, yay, praise God for that. So, because that helps, right? If you can get the help, it will help out mental health. So, let's see. So I want to tell you about, let me go on and continue. Like some of the things that they're worried about, here it is. The mental health of Gen Z. Of all the generations, they're the least likely to have good or excellent mental health. So that's kind of discouraging, something to pray for this generation. And these are the news events stressing them out. Mass shootings, suicide rates, that kind of trips them over. Climate change, global warming, separation, deportation, migrants. I mean, that's in the news all the time. Families being separated, widespread sexual assault or harassment reports. And so it's a lot when you see it on the paper, right? So think about like a 10-year-old or 12-year-old processing that. It's a lot. That's why we need to pray, right, for this generation. I love this generation. I find them refreshing, actually. But they're really stressed, right? They're worrying about a lot of things. School, it's just a lot, yeah. Then let me show you this other one. The suicide rate is really bad. I think John talked about that in his seminar, and I won't go into it too much, but you'll see that in just even the last, I would say the last few years, for children ages 10 to 14, suicide rate tripled in the last 10 years. It tripled. The rate of suicide tripled. And the others are like, 60%, doubling or whatever. And so there's a lot here. But again, I think suicide, people who commit suicide or attempt to is because they're trying to get out of the pain and because they're dealing with deep depression. And so chronic depression. And so I think that is this generation and what they have to deal with. And I want to say what John said was really helpful in his seminar is that girls actually attempt more suicides, but it's the boys who actually commit more suicide. And I've seen that in working with young people. It is the young men that I hear who commit suicide or who are really dealing with deep depression. And so that's something for us to think about. They both deal with it, right? But it comes up differently. And so that's for us to be aware of as we minister to them. Go ahead.
Do you find that with college students that the isolated male issue versus the female cohort willing to discuss and talk. Like, girlfriends talk, guys is like,
Yeah.
hold it.
I think that is in our ministry. Like guys, like girls would go, hey, let's sit across from each other and have coffee and just hang out or, do stuff. Whereas guys, I think, sometimes find that harder. You know what I mean? And they're the silent type or, maybe in their homes, depending on what kind of homes they were brought up with, that they might be holding it in. And so for us in our ministry, we try to do activities with the men. Activities where maybe instead of like girls would do this, hey, let's have coffee and hang out. Guys would, well, let's do something side by side and then let's talk, right? There is a difference, and it kind of depicts what you're saying. So you have to look at it differently, and how do we kind of get them to talk, And yeah, and we actually do a few other things too. So thanks for asking. So any thoughts on this a little bit? Yeah. Oh, were you going to say something? Sorry. Yes.
I just had a conversation with someone about, I was at a restaurant and I was told they don't sing happy birthday, and they're not allowed to sing happy birthday anymore to people.
Oh.
Because it creates anxiety. And I have a 16-year-old and we got into a healthy discussion. Let's say. And all of a sudden I came to this conclusion, and I agree with you, they are inundated with all these things. But I had a grandmother who, in World War II, her husband and both of her sons were across the Atlantic Ocean fighting in a war that they didn't start, and she had no idea if she would ever see the three men in her life that mattered the most. Now, she deserves to have anxiety when I think of it that way, versus having someone sing happy birthday to me in a restaurant. I'm not really sure. So I'm having a hard time because I just really thought, and the people who lived through those wars, those children who had to run, and not know if they were going to be bombed or whatever. It's just really
No, I agree. I agree with that. But here's what I would say. I'm old, so you're not as old as me. But I totally hear that. But when I think about this generation, okay, so I have, part of wisdom or maturing is that you learn to sift through information, right? Part of learning in life is looking through information and sifting through and going, what's right, what's wrong, what seems like the good news or the real news or whatever. That's part of discernment and maturity and wisdom. I think this generation had to do for me to sort through information is already hard, and I'm an adult. But for a little kid to sort through all that information out there, it's crazy. Do you understand that? So therefore, they're inundated with this and this perspective and this perspective and this story, and is it real? And they're inundated with, oh, maybe I should be this or I should be that. It's tiring. And it's really hard. And I hear you, because that's not what I grew up with. And to be honest, I'm very grateful, because I think if I had to grow up with what they grew up with, I think I would go crazy. Because there's so much information you have to steward. We say that as grown-up Christians. But for little kids, how do you steward so much information? And that's why you as parents and you as youth workers or church leaders have to help them sort through this. Does that make sense? That bombardment of information makes everything so tenuous and challenging. Does that make sense? I get what you're saying. You know what I mean? But I never had to grow up with that. And I'm glad. Is that awful to say? But I do think that we can help them to steward this technology. Does that make sense? That's our job, is to help them steward the technology so that it doesn't own them. And that's stress. We need to help them with the stress so that they don't freak out at every turn, right? It's our job. as more mature people. You know what I mean? It's hard, so anyways. Yes. Sorry. Oh.
Well, I was just going to say, at our mature age, we can pick and choose what we want to apply to us, what we want to absorb and discard the rest. I think that at that age, they feel that they need to absorb all this because they're going to be held responsible for that information.
Because they're going to be missing out. It's FOMO. But that's why, as parents and youth workers and college workers, we get the opportunity to God help us to encourage them, to shape them the way you want them to be shaped, in the image that they're image bearers of God, that their soul is yours, Lord, right? That's what we get to do. It's not easy, though, okay? Because it's so many years that they live with this. Does that make sense? All the information. And we get to help them steward information. We get to help them think about how do you deal with technology 24/7, 24/7. They're never off. This generation is always on. Their computer, everything is, you know that, right? They don't turn anything off. Think about what that means when you look at us being Christians. Sabbath, what does Sabbath mean? Sabbath means something different now for us, right? And it should mean something different for them. So we've got to help them and encourage them as we're learning ourselves how to steward this. We're learning ourselves too, I think, so. Yeah, okay, all right, sorry. Okay, we gotta go. Okay, we gotta go. Oh, yeah, okay. So I'm gonna do one thing, because we have so many things. Oh my gosh, it's 1:40. Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to tell you this study by Jean Twenge from San Diego, and she did this research where she found that something happened in 2012. The year 2012 was a marker. Okay, I didn't mention it earlier, but this was a great research by her, because that year was when we all first everyone started having access to smartphones, okay? And so she was looking and studying, and she found that the well-being decreased after 2012, when smartphones became common. And she would venture to say that adolescents and young people between 14 to 17, if they use like 6 hours online, that they would, let me see if I get this right, that they would actually increase that they would find their well-being going down, that they would be unhappy. In fact, she found that those who do 6 or 7 hours find themselves to be more depressed. And so there's a coalition, what a coalition, but there's a relevancy to that we have to look at. And so there's something about this when I was looking into it, and I see it in our students, is this thing that's attached to us. It's called phone. And it's not just the phone, it's the being on all the time and what that means. And so she found that, in fact, let me read this for you real fast. Adolescents who spent more than if they spent more time on non-screen activities, no screens, such as in-person activities, were found to be the happiest. The young people who are actually not doing 6 or 7 hours on screen were happiest. I see this in my family. I see the depression in my family because of there's so much screen time. And so I'm not, okay, please know I work with college students, so I'm not dogging technology, but I want us to steward that information, that there's something about what happens when you're looking at the screen that long, okay? Yes?
Do they distinguish between, now all the schools are giving the kids iPads and things to do. Is there any distinction?
I think, that's a good word. I'm not sure, but I would imagine it's actually outside the school that they're looking at, but I can check. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Also, just the 6 hours, like 6 hours in a row, 6 hours per week, it's 6 hours
I think it's per day. Yeah. This is our generation. So you have to watch that, right? So they're just, I'm gonna go real fast. But there is something about non-screen thing that's good for our young people. So I just want you to know. You guys know that already, I'm sure. You know, but I just want to say there was a report that says it. Yes.
I've had that conversation with my young adult kids, and they don't want to hear it.
I know. I'm sorry.
Any impact. And
Yeah.
it seems like so many of us kind of have figured that out, but they just don't want to do anything about it.
It's hard because I think it requires more of parents. You know, I think the word that I would encourage, okay, I'll do this real fast. Factors of why they have more depression, because social media, not that it's all bad. Social media could be a supportive thing, right? It is. It could be supportive, and it is 38% of the time. But the other times, it's also very negative on their soul. It's like being shamed or bullied or whatever. And so, okay, so you think about always having the device on, you're not sleeping. And for every hour that they're not sleeping, it affects the depression. So that's important. If you want to think about suicide, you've got to think about depression, okay? It affects what they're thinking about. Like, it's 58% more if they don't sleep and they're depressed, that they'll be more likely to attempt suicide. So you've got to look at it that way, too. Depression is very closely linked with suicide. Social isolation, even though they have friends, but they're virtual friends. And some of those friendships are more virtual. So, okay, I gotta do this real fast. What can parents do? Okay. Detox. And I know no one's gonna like it. I would say, watch your Wi-Fi. This is a great idea. Turn off, you know, you have Wi-Fi at home. At night, turn it off. So they can't do anything, they have to go to sleep. Sorry. Give them tools to deal with all that stress that we talked about, that they're worrying about, they're stressed about. Give them relaxation tools. Give them tools how to express their feelings. Help them. Like in EPIC in our ministry, we teach our students how to steward their emotions because they didn't learn that at home. So teach your kids how to have those emotions come out and help them to steward it with God and family and friends. Outdoors is actually good for your soul. Thank you. It's good for your soul to go outside sometimes. I'm not an outdoors person, but it does help you. Help them to have real life. Remember we were talking about the friends that are virtual or IRL in real life. Help them to have in real life friends, face to face. Because the more you can have that, the more that would help them. I think I would say this very quickly. I think this generation needs us to help them create memories and experience. If you look at who they are, they really value experiences, right? Because that's all they've ever known through social media, is people's experiences. People talking about, oh, that was such a great dinner, or that was such a fun place. They're looking for an experience. That's not all bad, but I think for us, we've got to figure out how do we create experiences for them that's positive and do it with them. You know what I mean? Because they're gonna fight us, I think. It's like, I don't want to do this, but just come on, let's go. Let's go outside, let's go for a walk, let's just do it. I think that's what they need from us. And the love, you know, love covers a multitude of sin. So I don't do this perfectly, but it's okay. As long as your kids and your young people know that they're loved, it's okay, we can work through it. But I think they need us to think about it. And the other thing is, when you look at your young people, I'm thinking about their identity. I'm thinking about how are they being shaped right now. When I look at our college students, I'm thinking about how is their soul being shaped and who is shaping their soul? Is it social media, the bad parts? There's some good parts of social media, but how are they being shaped? And so I think as we think about what can we do holistically for this generation, we have to go, Lord, how do we steward this? How do we create experiences that are actually memorable? They love volunteering. What if we go, hey, as a family, let's go and, go over here and build some houses for people who need it. And we'll have to get rid of that phone. You know what I mean? And let's just do it. That's a memory, and it's something that's not on the screen, but it's real life with you. And you're helping them steward their desire for an adventure and experience and guiding them towards how God could use them, right? And I've heard young people go, wow, that was so much fun. I got to do this. I got to go into the city, inner city, and do some great things. I never get to do that. And it's a memory with you, and you're helping them to find that they have a purpose. Remember, they want a hero, right? Remember that? They want a hero, a purposeful hero, like Malala, right? That's their generation. Well, let's figure out how can we help them go, you know what, you're so gifted in this. I wonder if God would help you find this purpose, where this purpose would be to use your gifts for the glory of God. Then maybe you can use your dance for God. Or maybe you can use your educational smarts to be a doctor for God. Does that make sense? We need to guide them in the experience that would help them to go, God has given me a purpose so that I can walk in it for his glory. That is an adventure that I think they need to be invited to. I think that's what youth workers have to do too. We need to help them to go, you have a purpose. In the midst of all this crap and all this challenge of all the information, God has a message for you and that you have a purpose. And let's figure that out. Let's create some experiences where we can try to figure out what that is and ask the Lord. So anyways, okay, oh my gosh, it's 1:30. Okay, what can the church do? I would say very similarly, provide safe spaces for youth, teach them identity, purpose. I'll go through some of it. One of the things that we do in EPIC with our students is we teach them we have actually a chart of emojis of their emotions to teach them how to process their emotions, but we also teach them how to deal with grief and loss. This generation needs to figure that out, because if you do not know how to deal with disappointment, that's when you'll become fragile. We have to teach them, how does God want us to deal with disappointments and loss when things don't work out? We have to figure it out from the Lord, from the scriptures, and help them, guide them through it. So it's really important, because that to me is a life skill that would save their lives. Does that make sense? Because if you don't know how to deal with disappointments, there's a lot of sense of loss, hopelessness. So, okay. I think it's in your notes, I think, form groups and so on. Anything else? Coping skills, stress. Okay, it is 1:30, you guys. I feel so bad. But thank you for your concern for this generation and their mental health. I'm excited that we can do this together, and thank you, you guys.